Well, good morning, everybody. I am very excited to introduce this morning one of our newest members to the All American Leadership Team, Dr. Marcy Levy Shankman. And over the next few minutes, we're going to get to know a little bit about Marcy, how she has come to be who she is today, and a little bit more about what makes her tick. So, Marcy, welcome.
Thank you, Rob.
Why don't we start by just giving us a little bit of the story behind who you are today and how you came to be what you are and doing the work that you're doing?
Well, thanks. I'm excited to share with you my journey. And like most people, I am where I am today, not because I necessarily planned explicitly to be here. I would say that my track has been anything but a straight line. And the irony of that is, I thought it would be a straight line. So I grew up as the kid of a university student affairs professional. And I thought, this is an amazing way of life where you get to be part of a college campus forever. So, in some ways, you don't totally have to grow up. And so that was the initial course of my career. I graduated from college at the College of William and Mary and got a job 3 weeks later and moved to the University of Iowa, where I was leading a staff of about 25 students, half of whom were older than me, all of whom knew more than me. And it was a very powerful, exciting, humbling experience. And that began this journey of helping people to be the best versions of themselves wherever they find themselves. So, fast forward, I took let's say, a slight right turn during my graduate work at Indiana University, which was where I got my doctorate degree, because I still was on this course of become a student affairs professional, lead a campus culture so that students become the best versions of themselves and institutions remember that they are there to serve students. And it was while I was working on my PhD, I was working full time at an organization called the Center on Philanthropy. And I discovered that everything I believed to be true for students on campus was true, plus was true in the nonprofit sector. And I realized that perhaps I could expand my impact by working with professionals in the nonprofit sector doing leadership development, which was what my passion was. And before I knew it, I found myself in the position to try some work on my own. So, without the long and involved story, I graduated with my PhD and I found I had an opportunity to go into business for myself. I had been part of some friends' bench, I would call it. They had their own consulting practice. And I was part of the team that helped support them when the contracts came in and it was beyond what their capacity was. I realized, hey, this is kind of a good gig. And for about the first 3 years of my consulting life, I didn't even have a title. Like, it took me a while to come up with MLS consulting, which, if you remember how
Very
you
original.
introduced me, yeah, not very clever, but it says what I needed it to say, which was that I was going to be in relationship with clients and that this was my passion. How could I help individuals, teams, groups demonstrate the best of what they have to make a difference in the lives of others? And that was almost 25 years ago that I started this business. And I was full time, or my definition of full time, for about 12 years, working in the nonprofit sector almost exclusively. I live outside of Cleveland, but my work was national. And in fact, I got to be an international consultant a couple of times, which was super exciting because it was just me in my own little home office. And this was way before remote work, way before people had a notion of this gig economy. And yet I was making it work. So here I was, an educator being an entrepreneur, which was a fascinating evolution just in my own identity. And what kept driving me, Rob, was the alignment of values, that I could work for individuals and organizations and groups of people who truly wanted to make a difference in their community. And their community might have been just their organization. It might have been a larger volunteer community, because I worked with a lot of volunteers in their organizations doing board development, doing strategic planning. And at some point along the journey, I realized that I was getting kind of stale. And I wanted to see if I could do what I was doing for clients within the boundary of an organization. Could I make the change happen from inside? It was actually part of what my dissertation was about, was organizational development and bringing to life a vision that you have. So I left the full-time consulting practice to go in-house at an organization called the Cleveland Leadership Center, where I was playing two roles. And you're going to hear a theme about me playing multiple roles. I wore the hat of being the director of Leadership Cleveland, which was really about bringing organizational leaders together to understand how do we, as a community of leaders, make our community better. So it was building the capacity of organizational leaders to become civic leaders. And at the same time, I was doing strategic development for that organization. Fantastic experience. Helped me see that what I believe to be true for students and in the nonprofit sector actually crossed various sectors. So leadership is leadership and context matters. There are principles of leadership that go across positions, they go across sectors, and the way in which I work with people, what I learned was it was not sector specific. It was really about the human. And is there this alignment of values? When I was at the Cleveland Leadership Center, one of the realities that we were confronted by in our work collectively was that for our city to be successful and a thriving city for its residents, we had to get public education right. And so I moved from the Cleveland Leadership Center to work for the Cleveland Public Schools in a novel position that had never been in the organization. And to the best of our knowledge, after a number of years, no other school system had hired an embedded leadership coach for the executive leadership team of the school district. And so I moved my consulting practice essentially into the hierarchy and the bureaucracy of a large public school system. And my job was to help the individuals at the top two levels of the organization in the administrative side of the house. So I'm not working with principals or teachers. I was working with the superintendent and his direct two levels of leadership reporting up, trying to help them be most effective in their roles. And so it gave me an opportunity to go deep into how do you develop leadership capacity in a public sector organization. It's a highly complex environment. There were 9 unions, so labor relations were a part of the leadership equation. And we ended up really working on organizational culture change as well, which went from within the school system to including the partner organizations that were both local in the Cleveland city as well as the county. And then it included national funders as well. So that opportunity helped me expand my own practice of supporting and facilitating the healthy development of both people and culture, because there's a very powerful interplay of the two. Mm-hmm. And after about 5 years in that role, I was elevated to the Chief Organizational Learning Officer, which helped cement this importance of organizational development. And being a learning officer gave me the framework to take the leadership development work and spread it wider in the organization. So that was a transformative experience. And I was in that role for about 2.5 years when there was a leadership change that gave me the opportunity to ask the important question of, am I being the best version of myself? And I realized I wasn't. And so January of 2024, I returned to full-time consulting practice, and here we are today.